Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Brunton Bugle, the number one place to get a Car United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Dan McLennan. Normally Lee would do a little intro here, but just as he pressed record, he went, "Oh, sugar." Well, not quite sugar. I haven't wrote anything. So we'll look at the 0-0 draw at Mansfield and ahead to Saturday's game against Wimbledon.
Kneel with a pass so true to Boulder Stone and Clark's in view. There's a cross and a run, the old 1-2 and a shot.
Superb, Dan. Absolutely superb.
That wasn't a bad fit, that was
It was. It went well.
Completely made it up on the hoof.
Oh, dude, that was shambolic. The problem is, I actually got the running order done really early this week. I had it mostly done. And I sent it to you early this morning. I just didn't check the fact that I hadn't written the intro the other night because obviously I didn't know what happened in the Mansfield game. So as it came to record, I was like, oh, blast. Yeah. I've not written an intro. Tried to do one on the hoof and it was terrible. And then Dad's like, what? I just have a go. It's like, yeah, why not? For a laugh, let's mix it up. There you go. How you doing, mate? You good?
Yeah, not bad, thanks.
Yeah, obviously last week was a bit of a change of events, really, wasn't it, for us? We had to put the podcast out later on a Monday instead of Tuesday.
As we were recording, obviously news was updating about Her Majesty. Obviously, it was a fluid situation, wasn't it? She went from being badly to unfortunately passing away in the afternoon. So football was cancelled. Whether it was the right decision, I'm not sure. Looking back, hindsight's a wonderful thing. There's plenty of other sports continued, but...
Well, yeah, I actually went to watch one of those sports. I went to watch Huddersfield against Salford in the Rugby League. It was a nice little trip out. And I've been to I was going to say the McAlpine there, but it's the John Smith Stadium these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've not been there for a while. Tell you what, it's from the outside, it still looks quite modern. When you're actually in the seat, it looks great, but the concourse is there looking tired. Very tired. It's a aging stadium, certainly. And Salford absolutely battered Huddersfield. Huddersfield were dreadful. I mean, it's the first live rugby league game I've been to. I watch it a fair bit on telly, but blimey, they just blew them away first half. It was incredible.
Rugby League with Rooney podcast launching next week.
Yes, I'll get Johnny on that. Johnny's a big rugby league fan. He came with me to that one, but there you go. Right, well, we've got a few bits to fit in today, so we'll get into that now. Just a reminder, of course, the podcast is sponsored by the Car United Supporters Club London branch. The London branch is open to all Car United fans. They've got members from Cornwall to Dundee and Houston, Singapore, and of course, every part of London and the South East. They regularly meet up on away trips, as well as arranging many social events, sports games, and fundraising for the club. They'll be providing us with information for the away games as part of the preview section this season too. You can find out more about the London branch at their website, carlisle.londonbranch.org. And we do know from speaking to the London branch that they have had quite a few sign-ups from people who've listened to the pod, so that's really good to hear. So if you're exiled outside, even if you live in Carlisle, you can still sign up. They're looking to get more members outside London now, aren't they? I think they're looking to do branches. I think twigs. I think they're calling them, aren't they? Off the London branch. So because I think there's quite a few in the northwest who are signed up. So yeah, if you're interested, get yourself along and sign up to that. Also a reminder, you can subscribe to the podcast and give us a review if you can as well, wherever you subscribe to your podcast. So whether that's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Casts, anywhere like that, if you can give us a review, that'd be fantastic. You can follow us on social media at Brunton Bugle on Instagram and Twitter. We're also on Facebook. Just search for Brunton Bugle and click like. And you can find us on the Be Just and Fear Not Facebook group. There's over 2,400 members on there. It's a really good community of Blues fans. And on the Cumbrians.net message board. And of course, if you want to go really old-fashioned, drop us an email, bruntonbugle@gmail.com. Right, let's get into it, Dan. A few bits of news. One bit of news that we did bring you the news about his loan being cancelled last week, Sam Fishman, didn't we? But turns out now he's already sorted a new loan move away, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think it was obviously in the pipeline when he was released and came back for a couple of days. But he's headed to Morpeth Town.
Yeah, it's an interesting move. This was obviously he's dropped down a level from National League North, and probably the right thing to do. Realistically, I don't think there was another National League North he could have moved to. He scored goals at this level. It's the Northern Premier League Premier Division. So it's basically the same level he was out with Lancaster at the start of last season. So So Morpeth, for those who are not quite aware geography-wise, it's sort of, in fact, it's not actually far from Blythe at all, is it? It's about 5-6 miles away, maybe?
Yeah, it's not far at all.
It's literally the ground you can see from the A1, apparently, as you drive in north of Newcastle, essentially. So yeah, he'll be playing for Morpeth Town. Their current, the Highwayman, that's a great nickname, that, isn't it? Really good nickname, that. I'm guessing because they're right next to the A1, probably why.
Yeah.
They're slap bang in the middle of the table at the moment, currently on 9 points in 6 games with 3 wins and 3 defeats so far this season. He'll be lining. In fact, I might change actually, because I think I might have wrote this before the game on Tuesday, so I do apologise if they've maybe, because they won the other night, didn't they? I think he came off the bench, Fishburne, in that game. But he'll be lining up alongside 2 form Blues, won't he?
Yeah, one of them a bit more well known than the other, in fairness.
Yeah. So it's Liam Noble in midfield for them. He's looking a little bit rounder these days, isn't he? I think it's fair to say, obviously being a non-league player, not training full time, but
he's been there a couple of years now.
Yeah, they've got quite a decent setup there by all accounts, haven't they? A lot of clubs in the north. We've said this before countless times, haven't we? In the northeast, there's about 5 or 6 non-league clubs that have got really good setups that probably could do okay in the Football League, couldn't they?
Yeah. I mean, obviously there was, their playing squads would have to progress.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, obviously you've got Gateshead in the National League, but then you've got the likes of your North Shields, Blythe Spartans, the
South Shields is the name one.
Sorry, South Shields, yeah. Although North Shields aren't too bad themselves.
Yeah, and Darlington as well, obviously just down the road, and so you're right. There's quite a few little nice setups up there. So hopefully he'll have a decent level of football to play. Connor Thompson, probably, I should say, is the one who never quite made a first team appearance for us, did he? But I think he was quite
also, Ryan Donaldson's there, who was a trialist for us a few years back.
Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, he was at Newcastle back in the day. Cambridge, I think, as well. He spent a long time off. So
he possibly went to Cambridge after being on trial with us.
Yeah, I think they were non-league at the time, weren't they?
Yeah, I remember him playing at Durham in a match where there was American football goals right beside the goals.
It's mental, because they played like a 4G pitch or something back then, didn't they? I think, yeah, that was a strange pre-season game, that one, certainly. Right, so that's Fishburne sorted out with a loaner. I think he's there for 3 months, is he, I think, initially?
Yeah, basically up to the end of the year, isn't it?
Yeah, basically. And obviously, after his first month, we'll be able to recall him if anything happens and we need his body back. But, I mean, I hope he just goes there and gets some goals. Because Simo was quite... this, again, came after we recorded. Simo was fairly strong in his comments by him, wasn't he? He wasn't so much having a go, but if you could read between the lines, he wasn't impressed. And neither were Blythe with how he'd applied himself in that loan spell, unfortunately. So maybe it's a little bit of a book your ideas up loan.
Last chance saloon, possibly.
Yeah, it's frustrating because he's got 1 year left on his contract, I think, and then he's got an option on top of that. So he's really got to show he's capable now. Otherwise, he's going to be doing that non-league circuit around, the northeast.
I mean, you've got to remember, he still is only a first-year pro.
He is, to be fair. That's a very fair point. I can't remember if it was I think with them it was they got their contract from that point, didn't they, rather than at the end of the YTS.
Yeah.
So there you go. So a couple of other bits of news. A couple of sad bits of news, actually. And one of them we missed, didn't we? And I do apologise for this because he's someone we both really like and we should have covered it last week. But I think because it landed on a Friday, it just didn't get picked up, did it? I think we just totally missed it. So for those who haven't guessed yet, the club have announced that Community Sports Trust Manager and former player and coach John Halpin will be retiring from his role at the club at the end of December to spend more time with his family. I mean, this is the end of an era, isn't it, really? There's fans who go to games now who will have gone to the soccer schools and things like that and, who may have never seen Halpy play and they'll know his face, won't they? He's been a face of Carl United out in the community for so long, and for older fans, they'll remember him. You probably just about remember him as a player, don't you?
Yeah, Christ, yeah. If it wasn't for the broken legs, he'd have played a lot higher than Carlo.
Oh, 100%.
100%. There was rumours a move to Liverpool was in the offing, etc.
Yeah.
And I think he would have made the step up. He was that good.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he's been around the club on and off for a long time because he did go and work for the Royal Mail for a bit. Well, people forget. 38
years on, with a sort of short break for a few years in the middle of it. Basically, he went to Rochdale as well briefly, didn't he, and came back. But he obviously was involved in the football and the community setup back in the start of the Michael Knighton days. And then obviously remember what happened when Knighton sacked Day, which funny enough, 25 years ago the other day, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's incredible to think it was that long ago. So yeah, he did that role, but then obviously when Knighton sacked Day, he took on the role alongside Halpin and Wilkes as first team coaches.
Yeah.
And there's some fans who do say we played some of the best football they've seen in years under those two. For periods.
It sounds bizarre, but we went and won at Wickham 4-1.
Yeah.
And I think it was like Knighton's first game in charge, and it was probably the worst result we've ever had.
Yeah.
Because it made him think he could do the job there and then, you know.
Yeah. But I mean, I think Knighton was sort of, when things were going badly, he sort of let them take the flak. When things were going great, he was front and centre, but he was never the one making decisions. It was Halpy and Wilkesy that were doing it. And like I said, we were very close to, well, not actually that close to staying up that season, were we? But we played some nice stuff for periods. It's just we lost a couple of key players at key points. That cost us. But there you go. And as I mentioned, obviously, he went away. He was treated quite poorly, actually, at the end of that season when Jimmy Glass scored, wasn't he?
Yeah.
In the way they got rid of him. And despite the fact he was treated poorly, he came back to the club under Fred Story. Paul Simpson's recommendation, wasn't it, actually? He said, we need people like that at this club. As Paul's shown this time around as well, he's got people back in, hasn't he, that have been involved before. And yeah, so as much as we're going to lose his knowledge and everything in the community sports role, it does sound like the club are keen to have him in some sort of ambassador role, which makes sense.
I wonder if he's lined up for a bit of scouting or something, couple of games a week or something.
Possibly, yeah, he might do a little bit of that. But like I said, being an ambassador as well, it's one of these things we actually don't do, because a lot of clubs do that, don't they? They have former players ambassadors. We don't really do that as much. It'd be great to have someone like him in that role. So, all we can say is all the best, Halpy, and we'll maybe try and get him on for a chat about his time at the club, won't we, at some point? That'd be really good.
Yeah, I think that'd be a popular one.
Yeah, because the amount you could cover in the time when he was one of the joint managers would be ridiculous, wouldn't it? There'd be some stories from that, I think it's fair to say. Only a little bit of news. Another little bit of sad news is this emerged from Brunton Park on the same day as the Queen's passing, that former Blues commercial director Tony Bingley has passed away at the age of 82. Tony's Yorkshireman, but very much an adopted Cumbrian, and I think a well-known face around the city for his work with Lloyd's Motors, wasn't he? I think, Dan, it's fair to say. And anyone who's been at Brunton Park, if you've seen the photo on the official website of when it was announced, you'll recognise his face from outside Brunton Park on a match day, won't you? And when I worked at the club for a couple of years in the media team, and he was always in there sorting out, bills and contracts and car leases and things like that. And he was a proper character, so, a raconteur, you'd almost say, with, you could tell stories for days. So really sad news that he'd been helping out on a voluntary basis for like the last 20 years or so, I think, at the club. And unfortunately, I think over the last season or so, he's not really been well enough to come in, sadly. And then we had the news of his passing the other day. So we pass on all our best wishes to his family as well for that.
Yeah.
Right. Match review time, Dan. 0-0 draw at Mansfield. So it's weird. It's a 0-0 draw. But there's plenty to talk about, isn't it? It was certainly an action-packed game, and it's weird. If you take one look at the stats, you'd say Mansfield 12 shots, 3 on target to Carlisle's 6, 61% possession to Carlisle's 39, and winning more aerial duels, pass success 69% to Carlisle's 51. You think, they've dominated this game. Mansfield, they're probably coming away thinking, how have we not won this? It's not. That's not the way it happened, though, is it?
No, not really.
I'd say it's the complete opposite. I think you'd argue we'd come away from that thinking, you know what, we could have nicked all 3 points there.
Yeah. We had a couple of chances. Tomas Holy made a couple of good saves. I think the draw was probably about fair overall.
I think you're probably right in terms of that. But what it does go to show is dominating the ball isn't the be and end all, is it?
No.
It's actually what you do with it, and particularly with us this season, we aren't having as much. It's quite similar to actually under Beach, that first full season he had. Not quite the same, because we're not quite as direct as his team were, but we're not that afraid of not having the ball. What it is when we get the ball, we get at them quick, don't we? And that's certainly showing this season. We've played some really good stuff, and it's kind of one of those ones. Like I said, last season you looked at it and think, great, 0-0 Mansfield, you bite the hand off for it. But we've raised the standard so much, you think to yourself, we probably should be getting 3 points from that game with the chances we've had. I mean, especially when we talk about those. The chances, that's the key thing. The quality of the chances have been good, aren't they?
I mean, I predicted a draw pre-match. I think you did as well, did you?
Yeah, all three of us did, yeah.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
No difference to the prediction scores this week.
I think the way I looked at it was, if we get a point at Mansfield and we can get 3 against Wimbledon, you class that as a good week, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Especially getting a clean sheet on the road, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it came to team selection, Dom, when you saw that, I mean, that's pretty much the strongest side we could have picked, isn't it, at the moment? Guy returning from injury was a big boost there, wasn't it? Because we all sort of agreed. You could see we missed something a little bit against Rochdale with him out.
Yeah, definitely. Harris he's not fully ready yet, is he?
He's got rough edges, and he's going to take a while to develop, isn't he?
He's going to need a bit of polishing. But it's good for him when he does come in for odd games, because obviously that helps his development. But yeah, no, it was the strongest 11 we could put out, given the injuries we have, and I think it sort of picked itself, didn't it?
Yeah, nice to see Charters back on the bench for a league game as well. Getting back to fitness, that's good to have him in the squad. He can give us another option either in midfield or at left wing back as well. So that's really good to see. Well, we can't talk about the goals because there wasn't any. Interesting fact to note there, that's the first 0-0 under Simo since Stockport at the end of his first spell in charge. Final game of the season. So yeah, it's been quite a while since that, hasn't it?
The convenient 0-0 that was.
Yeah, because it would have been a bloody riot if that hadn't been a 0-0 that day. Well, we had to go at it a couple of times. I mean, what I always remember about that is Raffinardi had come back from his loan spell, hadn't he, at Weymouth. And he got himself a league winners medal that evening, having picked up a league winners medal with Weymouth, having got 2 in one season. Not many players can say that, can they? Right, well, let's talk about the chances then, Dad. I mean, as I said, like, the stats do suggest Mansfield dominate, but they didn't really, actually, when you look at it. I mean, initially they had an early chance where Clark, for them, Ollie Clark, I think, had a low shot from the edge of the box. That was a comfortable save for Holy. There was no real issue with that. But then United started to get a few opportunities on the break, didn't they? And they particularly knock it over the wing backs, because both of their wing backs were very attacking with them. I mean, Jordan Bowery, he's an attacker, really, isn't he? He's not a wing back. But they're using him in that role because of his pace and his power. But this one actually came on the other side. It came over the left side. So long ball forward by Feeney, really well controlled by Gibson. Played a lovely ball into Dennis, and Dennis puts it wide. But actually, when you look back at it, it's a brilliant tackle by the defender, because he basically slides in, plays it off Dennis's foot, and it goes wide. If he doesn't do that, Dennis scores. Well, I say Dennis scores. We'll talk about his second half chance in a minute, because he should have scored that as well. So yeah, that was a decent chance. And then there was another one. I mean, this is one of the two sitters, really, isn't it, this one? I think it's fair to say. Good build-up from Patrick and Armour. The latter got to the byline. In fact, the defender did well not to bring him down in the area, because it could have easily been a penalty.
Yeah, definitely.
Got to the byline, whipped the ball across. It was just too powerful for Dennis. And it comes to the one play you probably wouldn't want on the end of it, doesn't it? Morgan Feeney, and he almost passes the ball straight back into the keeper's hands, doesn't he? And you can see straight away, he's like, I've caught... If anything, he's actually caught it too well. He should have just scuffed it. It goes in the back of the net. It's a tap-in. It's an open goal. So, yeah, really big chance to miss that. After that, there was probably one of the contentious points in the game, wasn't it? Maris did well to find space on the edge of the box. Hit a shot straight at Tomas Holy, which he parried straight into the path of George Lapsley, and he fired it through his legs, but the offside flag was up now. We've looked back at a freeze frame of this. It looks like he's onside, doesn't it?
It's tight.
I mean, it's very hard to tell from the angle of where the camera is. I think there's a camera on the other side as well, because I think that's where the analytics guys go on in the big main stand. So that angle might show it a little bit better. We haven't seen that, but the suggestion seems to be from the Mansfield side is that they've seen that and he was onside. For me, it looks like Armour's just playing him on, but it's tight. It's one of those ones where you can see why the linesman's in a panic giving it, because he's probably thinking he's just got himself ahead there. But a little bit of a get out of jail there for Holy. Should really be holding on to a shot like that, do you think?
Possibly.
Or at least palming it away from trouble, you'd think. That's probably the main thing. Palming it straight back to Lapsley is not probably the best thing to do. And then United had another chance up the other end. Once again, good build-up. Some really nice build-up in this game, actually, I have to say. For not having much of the ball, we used it really when we did. So Moxon played a ball into the box. It was nodded down to the edge of the area where Gibson does... It's like a sort of almost... like it's not quite a scissor kick, is it? But it's sort of a volley at like almost hip height. And he does really well to control it and keep it down, doesn't he? Because a lot of time players will hit a shot like that and they'll balloon it over the bar. He gets over it, hits a really low shot, and Christy Pym makes a really good save in the Mansfield goal. What I'd say is, and this isn't criticising Gibson because there's not really much more he could have done, a yard either side and that's in because it's too powerful for him to stop, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really frustrating that. Into the second half, this is the chance at the start of the second half, and this is the one we should have scored, really, isn't it? I don't think enough credit is given to how good a crossfield ball this was from Huntington to actually set the chance up. It was unbelievable, wasn't it? Like,
yeah.
Because it's not like, because it wasn't hit high, was it? It was hit fairly low.
It rivals Jamie Devitt against Rochdale, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And he sort of dissected like 2 or 3 players to the point where they just couldn't get to it. And it was so good that Gibson didn't even have to take a touch from playing the ball in. Dennis has got to score that, hasn't he?
Yeah, probably. Looking back, he'll be disappointed he hasn't. I wondered if the pace of it, possibly.
I think the problem is he got ahead of the ball. If you look back at it, he's a bit too quick onto it. He actually should have held his run slightly and he would have had an easy tap in to make it 1-0. And it's interesting. BBC Radio Cumbria commentary for this game. Little treat for you, wasn't it, Dan? Keith Curl on the co-coms, which I'm sure you were really happy about.
Wasn't on my commentary.
You had the away one on, did you? Sorry, the home one, I should say. He was actually quite quick to give a lot of praise to Christian Dennis and the work he was putting in, to be fair to him. He said he's covering so much ground and he's dragging defenders all over the place and he's creating space for other players. And that's a big part of why he's done, so well this season as well. It's not just his goals. He's really been someone who can occupy defenders at the same time. But he'll be disappointed with that one. But he's not the kind of player who's going to get his head down, is he? He's going to still be looking for chances, I think. So nothing too much to worry about there. Mansfield then had a chance. Low shot after a smart turn by Akins. Well saved by Holy with his feet. And then another really good chance. A really clever quick free kick from... not quick free kick, sorry. It's a clever free kick from Moxon. And a really good run from Feeney, actually, wasn't it? Because Lucas Akins was pretty terrible on defending free kicks, despite the size of him. He just wouldn't track his runners.
It's something I've noticed in the last couple of weeks with Huntington and Feeney and Mellish. We're starting to make good runs from corners and free kicks.
Yeah, definitely.
We look more of a threat.
Yeah, so this was a really good run. And actually, he ends up almost slide tackling the ball, doesn't he? Yeah. He slides to poke it across goal. And, if Mellish was just a half a second earlier with his dive in, that's a goal, isn't it? He was so close to getting down and do it. As it was, Pym claimed the chance. Beyond that, not a huge amount of others. I mean, Hartington with a long range effort that went well over the bar from Mansfield. Dennis put a really good cross in from the corner flag that went over everybody and came to Baku. Took a lovely touch and hit a volley, but it was straight at Pym. But again, I don't think there's much more he could have done with it. He had to get the shot away quickly. So there you go. And then Mansfield's best chance bar the disallowed goal was a chance for Maris on the edge of the box. He was found with a ball to there and hit a really powerful first-time shot that looked like it only just went wide of the post. So, yeah, that was it, basically. That was it. 0-0 full-time. I mean, as you say, Dan, fairly satisfied with that in the circumstances against a team that was going for 10 wins in a row at home, it should be noted.
Yeah.
So,
but it's a clean sheet. It's a point all the way from home. So there's definitely positives. Could we have nicked it? Yes. But so could they. So it was probably about right.
Yeah, we'll take that. Right, shall we do our 6-second reviews then, Dan?
Yeah.
So we've got a couple this week. We've got Scott Beebe and Simon Cornwall. Simon Cornwall's an old school friend of mine. He lives down that way, so he was at the game. And I think you say Scott lives in around about Sheffield way, I think, or something like that. So easy one for them two to get to. We'll go with Scott first. I haven't listened to this yet. So here's Scott's 6-second review of the game.
Hello to the Bugle lads. This is my 60-second review for the Mansfield game. The night started off with a couple of pints in their fan zone. It's a great facility, similar to ours, I'd say. There's a good atmosphere in there. One or two familiar faces in Carlisle shirts. And before kick-off, we had a minute's silence in memory of Queen Elizabeth II. Impeccably observed by both sets of fans, followed by a rousing rendition of God Save the King. The game itself, we happened to be sat in the home end, great view, just behind our very own John Coleman. Like most, they'd have probably taken a point beforehand. It's always a tough place to go. Clough sides are usually well organised, team of big units, and they normally put the top end of the table. But I thought it was an excellent away performance. Can't really single anybody out, but I know it's not really happening for Amari Patrick at the moment. But him and Jordan Gibson ran the knackers off from start to finish, took him back into a 5-4-1 when Mansfield had the ball. We defended from the front, limited them to very little chances, and I think our keeper, the big man, I think he only had one save to make. We did miss a couple of sitters, but to be fair to Feeney, the ball came at him at 100 mile an hour. There's not much he could have done about it. And the Dennis chance, he looked wrong-footed, and the ball was just behind him. So, bit gutted we didn't get the win, but more than happy with a point. Back-to-back clean sheets, and hopefully no more injuries. God save the King, and up the Blues.
Yeah, cheers for that, Scott. Hey, that was a really good assessment of the night out as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Interesting that he was in the home end as well. Actually, that he watched the game.
I think he was with a mate who's from that area. So
I always liked it. It's one of the things I don't think I've ever done it for a Carlisle game. The closest I got was that I was going to do that Doncaster game the season we went down to the conference. I was going to go in the home end for that because obviously our away end had sold out, hadn't it?
Yeah.
But in the end, didn't need to. I didn't bother going down because obviously
I have done it for maybe half a dozen games when I've met mutual mates and I've maybe travelled down on my own, so I've gone in with them and a couple of mates. I can get a beer at half time with them, etc. But it's always interesting when I remember once I went to. Sorry for going off topic. I went to Southend. Went to Southend in with a mate down there, and we scored. And I went, yes, not loud. And Leo Roger, who played for Southend at the time, was injured, and he was like, "What's he doing here?" And my mate knew everyone at the club. He's like, "Nah, he's with me. He's all right. And I was like, "Christ, I didn't even shout that loud," you know.
Oh dear. So really good assessment by Scott. I've got to say, he made a really good point about Patrick, actually. We keep saying he just needs that goals, and he didn't really have any chances in this game, to be fair, and it wasn't really his fault. He still looks a little, I wouldn't say off the pace, but he maybe just lacking a little bit of that confidence at the moment. Sometimes when he gets the ball, he's not quite as strong with it. I think it'll come with time, I'm sure, but defensively, I actually agree with him. He did drop into that, so he almost made it a 4, didn't they, at times, and you really, really work the backsides off in, like, say, Gibson. We'll talk a little bit more about Gibson in a minute because I want to raise that as an extra point. But, yeah, another good game from him as well. And the amount of running he does is ridiculous as well, isn't it? He gets right up and down the pitch, so full credit to him. I can't get any other point. I mean, he agreed with me on the Christian Dennis one, so I'm quite happy with that, Scott. Good assessment there. Right, well, what we'll do is then we'll do Simon's, and then we'll come to our talking points after we listen to what Simon said.
I live about 3 miles south of Mansfield, so this is the game that I always look out for when the fixtures are released. I thought we were defensively very strong. We soaked up an awful lot of pressure, kept our shape, and restricted Mansfield mostly to shots from outside the box. We had a few opportunities where we picked the ball up in defence, and we had players breaking in the opposition half, but we just couldn't pick that pass out, often being overhit, either out for a throw-in or a goal kick. One of the highlights of the first half was definitely the Tomas Holy net repair. By the time Mansfield had managed to bring a ladder over to it, he'd already sorted it out with the gaffer tape and just reached up and done it because he's an absolute giant, basically. Christian Dennis missed a sitter right in the first minute of the second half, which was the best chance of the game. Low cross in from Jordan Gibson. Christian Dennis was goal side of the penalty spot, unmarked, and managed to blaze it over the bar. So I think some of the best work that Dennis did was when he found himself out wide, surrounded by Mansfield players, somehow managing to dig out crosses, one of which fell to Finn back at the back post, again unmarked, but he was only able to tamely shoot the ball into the keeper's hands. I wanted to give a big shout out for Tomas Holy's ability to deal with crosses. He can just saunter out and reach up and pluck the ball out of the air, can't he? I think Mansfield are going to be there or thereabouts come the end of the season, so despite the fact that we probably should have won it with those chances, we would have taken a point beforehand on the road. So I'm happy with that. Up the Blues.
Another good assessment there by Simon. We will talk about Tomas Holy in a minute because it's not possible to do this podcast today, is it, Dan, without giving a good shout out to his DIY abilities. I mean, it's another fair assessment, I think, of the game, to be honest, in terms of the chances. Obviously, mentioning the Dennis one, it's one of those ones, isn't it? We've just got to take it, you know. It's just a shame we seem to be missing a sitter per game at the moment, don't we? That's the problem. It stands out a lot more when that's happening every single week. Well, come on then. Let's talk about Jordan Gibson. It's more a question about temperament here. Now, this isn't something that's happened a lot, so it's not like I'm picking on it for that reason. But the big turning point in the second half of this game for me was the booking he picked up. Now, what happened was, for those who didn't watch or listen, he did some really lovely footwork, didn't he, to get away on the right, and he was clean through into their half and basically had a couple of defenders to face at that point, and you'd fancy him to do something from there. And it was, I think it was Maris, wasn't it? Basically did one of those, one of those ones where you're like, well, you're getting away from me, I'm just going to kick you now.
Yeah.
So you can't get away.
You take the card, don't you?
Yeah, take the card, take his legs away.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones that if you go a little bit too far, you're going to get sent off, basically. But he didn't. He was just... It's a yellow card, but it's one of those frustrating ones you think, come on, it's cynical that there's no attempt made to play the ball. Now, Jordan Gibson didn't like this because I think he was quite frustrated. Because I think it wasn't the first time he'd been clipped and that kind of thing, was it? And he kicked the ball at Maris. Now, he didn't actually hit Maris. He was about 2-3 yards wide of him. But the referee or one of the officials saw this. And Gibson got a booking as a result. And it just took that edge off his game, didn't it? He wasn't quite the same player from that point. He was a little bit more shy in the tackle, and he likes to, try and nick the ball, doesn't he? So you didn't quite see the same play. So it's maybe just a little bit of a lesson to learn there for Jordan, just to keep himself calm in a situation like that, you think?
Yeah, probably. Maybe just a bit of frustration with the game, 0-0, chances, couple of chances missed, not quite going right. We'll let him off, but one to keep an eye on, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about a couple of other points. I've got a couple of points here, Dan. If there's any way you want to raise, obviously, pipe up. Got to talk about both the wing backs. Because you mentioned there about Finn Back and his chance, and he was the man of the match on whoscored.com for both teams. It was 7.6.
Paul Simpson spoke really well of him on the official site yesterday, I think it was. Yeah.
He's really been so impressive. Because the thing is, he had a bit of a tough game against Rochdale, didn't he? He wasn't the best in that game, and yet he's come back in this one, and he did look one of the best players in the pitch, didn't he? He was up and down, creating chances, but also defensively, up against McLaughlin, who's one of the best wing backs in the division, isn't he? Barely got sniffed, didn't he?
Yeah, the thing that stuck out from that Paul Simpson piece on him was he said he just gets on with it.
Yeah,
for a lad at 19-year-old, just gets on, never whinges, does what he's asked. And he sort of said, I need to actually speak to him more because I don't need to.
He said, I haven't spoken to him in a week, didn't he? And I just realised that. So it's like, it goes to show, he just gets on with his job. And that's great.
I think there's a lot of lone players in general could sort of take a look at that attitude,
Yeah, he's clearly got a great attitude. He knuckles down, works hard, and that's really good to see. But on the other wing, Jack Armour causing problems and putting good balls into the box. And we said this because he had that spell last season where he looked a bit shaky, didn't he? And we didn't really have anyone to replace him, so he had to play on through it, didn't he?
It was towards the end of the season, that. And like I said at the time, I think it was just more, he's played a hell of a lot of football.
He only turned 21 in May. And obviously, when you think about that, you've got, a 21-year-old wing back on one side, a 19-year-old wing back on the other. It's seriously impressive that, they've played every game pretty much, the two of them. How good they've been, isn't it? This opening month or so of the season. Really, really impressive. And long may it continue. As we say, though, they need to work on the finishing a little bit, the pair of them, don't they, I think? Because they're coming in at the far post, they've got to take those chances. But yeah, fantastic to see how well they're doing. Yes, generally, like we said, it's a really impressive, resilient performance from us. Still only one defeat this season. That's something that sort of goes missing, doesn't it? It's a shame that we've only got 2 wins and we're getting a few too many draws early on. But the important thing is, in those draws, we're creating chances. It's not like we're hanging on by the skin of our teeth, are we, in those games? We're actually looking to try and win those matches, and that's the real positive take from that, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a big difference, isn't it? The last couple of years, we would have been hanging on, whereas, there's periods in these games where we do actually look like scoring and taking the initiative. So,
definitely. Really impressive. Well, come on, let's talk about then the divine intervention to fix the goal.
Yeah,
the holy man himself, Tomas Holy.
Who needs to set a ladders when Tomas Holy is in goal?
6'9", all 6'9" in, reaching up to Gafford. I noticed they'd actually fixed it the second half, hadn't they? I think they'd put a new net or something else onto it, because I noticed it was different, that there was no black tape there. But essentially, for those who didn't know, there was a shot that hit the side netting that was... it's interesting. I think that was one where, I think James said on the radio that, if he hadn't, if that had been on target just a few yards to the other side, Holy was nowhere near it. He watched it go wide. It was well wide. It was comfortably wide. Now, what it did, though, it was expose the fact that there was a hole in the top of the net. The net had come loose in the corner. And obviously, they couldn't get it to attach to the hooks again. So basically, what they had to do was they had to get some gaffer tape. And they were waiting for some ladders to come. And Tomas Holy just said, just give it to me. And without even going on his tiptoes, he reached up and taped up the whole goal again. So... fantastic to see that stuff from Thomas. And as Simon said on there before in his 6-second review, on crosses, because early on I thought, is he going to be one of these tall keepers who just doesn't claim crosses at all? But actually, he's not nothing of the sort, is he? In the last 5-6 games, set piece wise, it's a nightmare for opposition teams because they have to really think about what they're going to do. Because if you stick it into the 6-yard box or nearby, they have a chance that Holy's going to come and claim it, isn't he?
Yeah. He's been quietly impressive, hasn't he?
Yeah.
There was a lot of talk. Will he get down for low shots because of his size and that? And the last couple of games, he's got down 2 or 3 times very quickly and very well.
Yeah.
No, I'm getting more and more impressed with him as the season moves on.
And he seems a good character as well. That's something that stands out.
Yeah, he seems as though he's quite a laugh, doesn't he?
Yeah, some of the there's actually something I forgot to mention. I forgot to put in the thing was there was one point it would have been in the first half. He threw the ball out with his left hand, half the length of the pitch, and got us going on an attack. It was seriously impressive stuff. I think his distribution's a bit better than people are giving him credit for as well. I mean, the problem at the moment is he's putting it up to Patrick, and Patrick's not a target man. Get Edmondson back in the team, you'd see us winning a few more.
Yeah, definitely.
There you go. Right, before we go into the second half of the show, Dan, we'll do a quick League 2 roundup. Who's going to stop Orient on their march to the top of
Flying,
League 2? Unbelievable. Still, the only unbeaten team left in the division. I think only one draw on whatever other game possibly. Let me just double check.
I think it's 7 wins and 1 draw, isn't it?
That's seriously impressive stuff, isn't it? To come in as well and not make a huge amount of changes to that squad either. That's near enough the squad they had last season. I don't think there was a massive amount of incomings for them.
And they've only conceded 4 as well.
Yeah, he's a good manager, Richie Wellington. He's a bit of a knob, but a good manager. So they continue their march up League 1. Poor Rochdale, they were beaten 1-0 by them. I think Rochdale probably look at that thinking, look, we didn't get battered. That's the important thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, other teams are going to get beat by an Orient this season comfortably. So don't worry too much, Rochdale, even though you've still not won a game. Again, we'll come on to that soon. Disappointing for you, Dan. Sorry, especially the first one. Barrow and Stevenage continue to defy the odds, don't they, at the top? Yeah,
both doing well. Fair play to them.
I mean, Barrow especially beating Doncaster 2-0. That's a big result for them.
Yeah, by all accounts, they could have had a couple more as well. The one who were finally doing it for me is Salford.
Yeah, and they're grinding out results, aren't they? They're not just the games when they're not playing well.
They're doing it properly, aren't they? As opposed to the last couple of years. And Northampton, we all fancy to be up there anyway. They're ticking along, aren't they?
Yeah, so they beat our opponents this week in Wimbledon. Just on the Barrow Doncaster game, did you see the story on Twitter about the Doncaster fan who travelled up from London to the game?
No.
You want to see this, all right? So basically, he looked at how much the train was going to cost, and it was going to be quite extortionate. It was going to be really expensive. So what he did, from London, he flew from, I can't remember which one London airport it was, to Dublin. Then from Dublin, flew to Manchester, and I think that cost him a combined total of something like 17, 18 quid maybe. And then from Manchester, got the train to Barrow for the game, basically, and cost him 30 quid in total instead of the 100 plus quid it was going to cost him to go down, just buy a train ticket. So, I mean, it'd take him a hell of a lot longer with all the waiting in airports and things like that.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show how ridiculous the price the
But it's like
train
we've
tickets are.
always said, if we ever draw Dover away in the cup, we're flying to Paris for it.
Exactly. Fly to Paris and get the train up or something. There you go.
Train and ferry, yeah.
Exactly. But so that's in terms of that. Crawley, they've got off the mark. They've got their first win of the season with a 3-2 win over Stockport. Really struggling to find their feet, aren't they, in League Two?
It's just not happening for them, is it?
No. No matter how many signings and stuff they make, they just can't seem to turn it around, can they? It's a frustrating one for them. But right at the bottom, Hartlepool and Rochdale. It's going to be a long slog for those two this season, I think, isn't it?
I think it is for Hartlepool. I think we saw from Rochdale when we played them, and he knows what he's doing, Bentley. Yeah. I think they'll have enough to get out of it, but Hartlepool, it's not very good for them, is it?
No, certainly not. They're getting the odd draw here and there, but not great really overall. Should note on Hartlepool, they see the signing they made this week, Chris Maguire. Although how long he'll be able to play for them, I don't know, because he's obviously got this investigation, isn't he, over gambling going on right now. So could be interesting to see whether he gets a ban or not there. That's pretty much the first half of the show done, isn't it, Dan, I think? Yeah. Nothing else to cover. So we'll just take a short break and then we'll be back to preview the Wimbledon game.
Hi, this is George Tanner. You are listening to the Brunton Bugle.
Thought I'd go a little bit old school with that one.
I was going to say old school. Yeah.
George has been sitting there waiting for a while to be used, as he has been on the Bristol City bench for quite a while, actually.
Yeah, he's bench warming at the moment.
Yeah, he quite often plays, I've noticed when he plays on the right side of a back three, rather than as a wing back, which feels like a waste of his talent for me.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad, really, but then, you got to take that chance when it comes, don't you, sometimes?
He'll get his go.
Yeah, right. Okay, before we get into the Behind the Enemy Line section, Dan, I've got a question of the week for you. And it follows on from the question I did last week. So, as we covered last week, Paul Huntington was the first player to score a goal who was born in Carlisle for Carlisle in a league game since Paul Murray in 2006. Can you name, and you'll know the first few of these, but can you name the last 5 players born in Carlisle to score a league goal for Carlisle United? We'll come back to this just before the X-Files section. This is one more for the listeners at home because I think you'll know these quite easily.
Yeah, well, we sort of half chatted about this, haven't we?
Yes. So this goes back, to give everyone a little bit of a clue here, this goes back 25 years, basically, those 5 players. So there's been 7 players basically in the last 25 years who were born in Carlisle who've scored a league goal for Carlisle United. And we just want you to name them. So we'll come back to that shortly. Right, Behind Enemy Lines. This week we spoke to Lee. Yes, that's not at all confusing. From the Wombles Had A Dream podcast. Really good chat I had with Lee, actually. Really interesting to get a bit of an insight because obviously we haven't played Wimbledon for quite a few years, have we? It's we had a couple of seasons with them in League Two and then they went up to League One. Yeah, it was really interesting some of the things he said because it's a little bit unexpected. He was talking a lot about the pros and cons of fan ownership because there's a lot of talk amongst their fan base about whether they should stick with that model or look to get someone to take over the club. A little bit about their journey that their club has been on the return to plough lane and also why being in League One wasn't all that good for them. Interesting, that one. There you go. So here's the chat I had with Lee early this week. Okay, this is not going to be at all confusing, but here is Lee talking to Lee from the Wombles Had A Dream podcast to talk about all things AFC Wimbledon. Lee, thank you for giving up your time to speak to us today. Let's get straight into it. It's 20 years since the club was first formed in response to the disgraceful decision by the FA to approve the old Wimbledon's move to MK Dons, or Milton Keynes, sorry, not MK Dons, Milton Keynes. Can you quite believe how much the club has achieved in that time from, starting out with those trials on the old Wimbledon Common, wasn't it? To be now a League One club with their own ground.
Well, League Two club now, unfortunately. But it's been 20. It's been a good, fun 15 years. The last 5 years have been pretty tough in League One, and then being relegated into League Two. But the non-league days were a good laugh. They were fun. The trials on Wimbledon Common, going through the non-league leagues in 9 years, I think it was, from when we first had our first non-league game to going into League Two through the playoffs, beating Luton at Man City Stadium. It's been a journey and a half. It's been very enjoyable, but the last 5 years have been a bit of a slog, if I'm honest.
It's interesting the way you put that because, most people think, oh, that's the pinnacle, getting yourselves to League One and, getting yourselves at the same level as the other club, obviously, and, competing against them in the league. That's surely the pinnacle. But it sometimes shows, doesn't it? Once you reach that height, you're like, oh, crap, it's not going to be quite as enjoyable because we're not going to win as many games, are we? That's the way to look at it.
The thing about football is expectations change every season, don't they? And if you go up as quickly as we did, so during the non-league days, we were expected to win the league. It was a good laugh. We were beating teams 6-7-0. We went on the longest unbeaten run in history. And so once you get into League Two, and we should never have gone up. We had a decent team, got through the promotion, went into League One, and then when you're playing the big boys in League One, the Sunderlands, the Sheffield Wednesdays, teams like that, you want to be playing them every week. So when you've got a squad in front of you that you know is good enough and it's just not happening, and being fan owned and fan run is totally different to have a chairman and stuff like that. So it's hard at the same time because you want to do well, but we've got restraints on us with money, funds. We haven't got a chairman who's just going to blow a load of money, and we've also just built a brand new stadium that's cost us millions of pounds, and that's all been paid for by the fans. So we've got a debt over our heads, and it's trying to now fund that. If you look at a team like Arsenal are only now just funded their stadium, so they're being able to. We've got that to come now. We've got to try and get the stadium funded, paid for, so we can then start having a better budget than we've got currently.
Well, that brings me on nicely to my next question, actually. The new ground. So you spent 18 years at Kingstonian, finally returned to your spiritual home on Plough Lane. That must have been such a special moment to walk out there for the first time at this ground, knowing, cause in fact, I say 18 years, being away that long. It's even longer than that. It's probably about 30 years, isn't it, when you add in, obviously the time at Selhurst Park when it was Wimbledon. It must have been an incredible feeling to walk out there and go, wow, this is our home now.
It was I chose not to go to any of, because they had some pre-season games at the stadium kind of to test. They were test games. I chose not to go to them. I wanted my first game at Plough Lane to be against it was Bolton, I think we played, and it was Bolton in the league, and that was it. And it was a special moment. It was brilliant to be there. I'd never watched Wimbledon at Plough Lane. Unfortunately, I was too young. Didn't get to go to the old Plough Lane. I played on Plough Lane when it was still there with the grass pitch. I never got to watch a game there. I was at Selhurst Park, which for me, even though I'd never been to Plough Lane, I never grew up in Wimbledon. It never felt like home, Selhurst Park. But then being in Wimbledon, being in, as Carlisle will know, a community club, we are now that community club. We are in the community where being back, the whole community is on board. The local restaurants, the shops, they're loving it. There's a big buzz around the place. And it was just buzzing to be back there against that. And it was good that we played at Bolton because most teams know they travel in numbers. They brought a load down, and it was just I think it was free all, and it had everything that game. So it was beautiful to be back.
Yeah, it must be incredible to know the fact that obviously for Wimbledon, you know it's your home. We own this ground. It's in our, like you said, it's in our community. It's our place to go and watch the football now. You obviously traipse into the likes of, up to Selhurst Park and Croydon, I think, isn't it? And obviously up to Kingstonian. It's not the same, is it?
That's another thing. It's like travelling in London ain't easy. If you come down from Carlisle and you go to Wimbledon, you've got to go through whole London. It's not easy. So even travelling, as people might see it, if you look on a map, Wimbledon to Selhurst Park or Crystal Palace isn't that far. But if you're travelling on the trains and stuff, it's quite far. And also it's Crystal Palace. It's not us. It's not Wimbledon. We are now in the middle of Wimbledon. We are a stone's throw away from the old Plough Lane where that ground used to be. The ground, I think, in my personal opinion, I'm obviously very biased, but I think it's beautiful. I think the way we've done it, you won't be able to see it as an away fan, but in the home end, we've got food trucks. We've got like a fan zone. We've got our own pub showing all screens of all the match day football. So all the money that we spend is going straight back into the club. And it's just, we've got 4 or 5, as I said, food trucks selling food on a Saturday. And it's got that special feel about that people want to get to the ground early, spend their money to socialise and have a good time. And then obviously 90 minutes of football ruins it. So.
Yeah, exactly. Always the case. I mean, we're similar with us. What we've done this season, we've we've almost got a little fan zone outside our main stand. So any Wimbledon fans coming up this weekend would recommend go around to the main stand before you go into the East stand first, because there's loads of trucks there. There's usually a band playing as well. There's a big like container truck, an old container thing that has a bit bar in it. So yeah, well worth doing that. And like I said, most clubs need to do that now to make the extra money, don't they? So there you go.
I think that's what a lot of clubs are doing now. I think they're kind of tuning into that, getting local businesses, local places involved, and saying, look, calm down, you pay us a fee, you make the money off what you do, and then it's a good social like, and people love it. So yeah, I think a lot of clubs, especially down at our level, have to do it to kind of get their revenue up a little bit. So.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's talk a little bit about last season. I do apologise for having to bring this up to you. I mean, that run you went on. I remember every week I was sort of checking, because we were always looking to see who was going to be coming down next season. We're thinking who we're going to be playing, and we were praying for some of the Lancashire clubs to come down. Obviously, Fleetwood and Morecambe let us down by actually turning things around a little bit there, and Gillingham messing up on the last few games. But you guys, we always looking and thinking, yeah, they're coming down. There's a new ground to tick off next season. I mean, how tough was it going to watch? Because there was that sort of crushing inevitability as it went to like 10 games without a win, 15, 20, of like, yeah, we're going down here, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, I think most Wimbledon fans thought we were going down after about 10 games. It was 27 without a win in the end before we beat Gillingham first game of the season this year. But yeah, it's tough. It is, and the thing about Plough Lane is it's such a special stadium. It hasn't been nice to us because I think we've won 2 in 37 now. I think we've only won 3 home games in the last, I can't remember how many, but it's so long. And the problem is we started off so well in League One. I think we were 5th at this time last year, 5th or 6th. And then we just went on an appalling run where we couldn't buy a win. And the football we were watching was terrible. And it wasn't fun to go watch. It wasn't fun to be about. And as I said, with being a fan-owned club, you then start getting people wanting to then move away from that, wanting to sell out and stuff, and it became quite toxic in the end, which isn't very nice.
I suppose that is the risk, isn't it, with the fan-owned thing? Everyone thinks, oh, it's a great idea, it's fantastic, but then it's great when you've got these little ups and you're working your way up, and then when you hit that point where, like you said, you almost hit your ceiling and then start to drop a little bit, there is that sort of, oh, we need someone in there throwing money at it, and sometimes you just got to stand firm, haven't you? Say, no, we've got our principles there. Yeah, we're going to have times when it's a bit down, but you know, we can bounce back eventually. That's the hope, I suppose, isn't it?
It is the hope, but it's a tough one for me because, yeah, there's different aspects of Wimbledon. Obviously, I don't want to go too far into it, but people that run the club and staff are fans. They don't have the expertise to possibly run a club, but then you have other people that do, and it's trying to get that mixture of people that really love the club and want to give their time, but don't really have the expertise to be running a football club. And it's a really hard aspect. And then winning always kind of clouds it over. It kind of paints over that, or puts a plaster over that little thing until next week. The problem is you go on a 27-game run without a win. That's when the murmurs start coming and they get louder every time they lose. And it becomes, it was quite toxic in the end. Yeah.
So far this season, bit hit and miss it seems. You know, you've had a couple of decent results in there, but obviously I think you're on a run now, 3 defeats in a row, aren't you? Obviously, hopefully not going to go on as long a run as last season, but is there kind of a feeling like, okay, this is going to be a tough season? And you brought Johnny Jackson as well. How's he doing, obviously, this season?
This is the problem again. Because of last season, everyone's so wrapped up in how bad it was last season that we're still kind of feeling that now with the run we're on with three games without win. We just don't look. We look very defensive. And Johnny Jackson came in with this plan. He hasn't got rid of the deadwood from last season that sent us down, that people are still a bit angry with. So they're still part of the team. They're still part of the setup. We had a couple of good wins. I say good wins. You say we had decent results. We beat Gillingham, who were poor this year. We beat Crawley, who I know they've had a couple of results, but they were awful against us the other week. When we beat Crawley 2-0, there was actually people, Wimbledon fans, booing at the end because we were passing it around the back and didn't want to go forward, and it was quite boring to watch. And that's the thing about Wimbledon is if you don't come and attack us, it's going to be very boring to watch a game with Wimbledon. We're very defensive. We don't like to get after anyone, and it's kind of last year is now seeping into this season, and the toxicity is coming back a little bit, which is a shame.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously you mentioned Jackson's quite defensive. I mean, he had a decent start at Charlton from what I seem to remember, but then he just sort of went belly up for him, didn't he? Really, and he really struggled a bit. I mean, is there a feeling that he's going to need a bit of time to turn things around? I mean, obviously you mentioned the fact getting rid of all the deadwood. It's interesting because Paul Simpson came into us in February, managed to turn us around from his team that looked like it was going out of the league, and he didn't get rid of all the deadwood. He thought, you know what, actually, there's some good players here, and he stuck with them. Is that what Jackson's doing there, or is it just a case of he can't get rid of them because they're on longer contracts or that kind of thing?
A bit of both, I think. There's a couple of players that are on decent contracts, decent money. Our goalkeeper, one of the big issues at the moment is our keeper. He's a great shot stopper, but he's got hands that look like they've been covered in butter. The goal on Tuesday was horrendous against.
Is he the one who messed up against Fleetwood last season?
Yes, the one who he done it the other week against Stockport as well. He passed back and it was quite funny on the way back from Stockport. One of my mates was talking to a Charlton fan, and he said, "How did Johnny Jackson do at Charlton, and how's he doing at Wimbledon?" And everything he listed was boring football. Does he stand there with his arms crossed and don't really have that? He's not going to G up the players and stuff. Yes. It's funny because there was a photo of Johnny Jackson at the start of the season. The man's very handsome, the greatest hair probably in League Two. There was a photo of him after the Northampton game, and it looks like we've turned him into a junkie.
Oh dear!
It's about 8 games. No, it's quite funny to see. Yes, it's not great at the moment, unfortunately. But we've got you lot on Saturday, then we go to Bradford the Saturday after, and I just don't know where we're going to get a win from.
Oh wow! Well, I've got to ask you about who the sort of danger medal people to look out for on your squad. I mean, I'm looking through it now, and I mean, Alex Pearce standed out as a good signing for you in the summer when I saw him coming in. And beyond that, I mean, the problem is I don't know League One that well these days. I don't watch it as much. Harry Pell's one that was always really, he's had good games against us in the past. Anyone else there that really stands out that you'd say is people should watch out for?
Yeah, I'd say there's 3 players I'd say watch out for, and it wouldn't be the 2 you just mentioned.
Oh.
Harry Pell's come back. He needs games. He hasn't had a pre-season, so he's come back in. He looks like he wants to get amongst it, and he can. But yeah, he just needs games. So at the moment, he doesn't look as fit as he should. But the 3 I would say is we've got a left back called Jack Curry. He's been injured, unfortunately. He's come for our youth team, went on loan to a Conference South team called Eastbourne Borough, won their Player of the Year, come back in and slotted in perfectly. Don't look out of place in League Two. Possibly should have played League One for us. We got a player called Paris Magoma, who's on loan from Brentford B team.
Name rings a bell. Yeah, I've heard of him.
He is a Rolls Royce sort of player. He literally, if you let him run the game, he will run it all day long. He's got passes for days. He gets forward. He'll run the game for us. And then Ayo Bastal, I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a little scallywag of a player. He's one of them players that you love playing for you, but don't like playing against.
No.
And but he's little, really small, and you think no, but he will go up to the tallest player and have it right off of him. And he's one to watch out for. Bit greedy. He's kind of frustrating the fans a little bit with his greediness, but he is one that will not stop, and he can do something out of nothing. But they're the 3: Paris Magoma, Jack Curry, Ayo Bastal. 3 decent players that I'd say, watch out for.
I've got to ask you as well, actually, I've only just realised this. You've got the lad who was at Solihull Moors last season. You got him on loan from Huddersfield, haven't you? Cal Hudlin. I mean, he's as tall as our goalkeeper, Tomas Holy, who's also 6'9". I mean, how's he settling in? Because, I mean, it seems obvious what you're going to do when you've got a player like him in your team.
He hasn't played.
Oh.
He's come off the bench a couple of times. He got injured, went back to Huddersfield for a month. I think he's been there. He came back on Monday. So he came off the bench against Northampton. I've not been overly blown away with what I've seen.
No.
He played 5 games. Everyone sees how tall he is and sees the goals he scored for Solihull Moors. But if you look at it, he only played 5 games for Solihull Moors, and then Huddersfield bought him. I think we signed him because they bought Jack Redoney off us for quite a big fee.
Yeah.
And then we got him thrown in on that and said, look, give us Hudlin. He comes to us for a season, and Huddersfield look at it. But he is a big kid, but unfortunately, he hasn't had the minutes to get himself involved. And we've got Davison, New York City. We've got a guy called Nathan Young-Coombs, NYC, so everyone calls him New York City. We have him from Brentford B. Them 2 are striking up a little partnership. But NYC, Nathan Young-Coombs, possibly going to be injured on Saturday. He went off with a knee injury against Northampton. So we might see Dave. You might see Davison and Sal, or they might throw Hudson in, depending on how Carlisle play.
Oh, we'll have to wait and see, won't we? Lee, thank you so much for giving me time. Really appreciate it. Before you go, can I have a prediction for this weekend's game? I suspect it's not going to be very positive based on what you've said so far.
I was looking at your results, and I've seen that you've conceded some goals against the lower teams, like Rochdale. I think it was 3-3. You've, so I didn't realise that you can concede goals, and I thought, well, we can score goals. That's the thing. But we're likely. I think last time we came up to you, I thought Carlisle was a great place, great town, great place to drink, and I think it was 4-4.
It was a 4-4 game.
I came up, and I think it could be. I think a 2-2. I really do. And the only thing I'm disappointed is I'm not. A lot of people ain't going to be able to make it up to Carlisle because the trains were met. Avanti need to sort themselves out.
Absolutely. Well, I live in Liverpool and I come up from Wigan for every home game, and it's just basically a mess this season.
They put their train tickets on sale today.
Today,
yeah. So you think what? A couple of days before the game, the cheapest ticket I could find was £86. I'm not spending £200, unfortunately.
No.
So, I'd love to go. I think it's a great place, but a great stadium. I do. Yeah, I think 2-2. I'd be happy with that, to be fair.
Well, we're all looking forward to coming down to Wimbledon this season to tick off Plough Lane as a new ground. I mean, I'm hoping it's a bit more accommodating and a better place to watch football than Sutton was last season, because that ground is barely league standard, I think it's fair to say.
Did you ever go to Kings Meadow?
We did, yes, actually. We went to Kings Meadow. I think I only went for the one we won 3-1, I think, actually, was last time I went. But yeah. That
was horrendous for away fans. The view was awful. When Plough Lane, you'll love Plough Lane. The only thing I'd say is it's going to be a bit of a shock to the system from people coming to Carlisle to Wimbledon and buying a pint. It's around about £7 a pint in the local pubs.
Okay, well,
there's it's around about £5.50 in the ground. So I always say when I speak to people from Sunderland and other podcasts from up north, I always say just bring a few extra pounds with you because it ain't cheap.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for your time and all the best for the rest of the season after this weekend.
Thank you very much, Lee.
Yeah, big thanks once again to Lee for giving up his time to speak to us there, Dan. Really interesting stuff, isn't it? Really, you think you'd be all excited about getting up to League One, but obviously, when it's a lot harder to compete against some of the big teams that are up at that level, it's maybe not as enjoyable going to games sometimes, is it? When you're getting beat, it's almost like that thing with fans of teams down at the bottom of the Premier League. You think sometimes you'd be better off just getting relegated and having a few years in the Championship where you're actually winning a few games.
Yeah.
If you're struggling year on year on year, it's not always that enjoyable. So and there's some, like I said, some really interesting points in the fan ownership model as well, and the idea of it's not all roses, is it really? It can be a bit problematic at times sometimes as well. So there you go. Right, so let's look to the Wimbledon game, Dan. Referee this weekend, Andy Haynes, one of the most experienced referees in the league, isn't he? It's one of those names you recognise now, isn't he? Especially with us, because he's based in Tyne and Wear, so he covers us probably 3 times a season at least, doesn't he? So it's his 16th season as an EFL referee. He's taken charge of 6 games so far this season, handing out 15 yellows and 2 red cards. One of those red cards, you may remember, was the famous double booking given to a Shrewsbury player in their game against Accrington that was actually later rescinded due to a mistaken identity, wasn't it? Because it was actually the keeper that had committed the dissent offence. So there you go. Last season, he handed out 96 yellows and 1 red card in 34 games. So not that, card happy in terms of the red cards, is he? But the yellows averaging about 3 a game, which is quite average, actually. And when we look through these things, that's generally what it is, isn't it? Usually it's about 3 a game on average. Last game he took charge of was the 1-0 win over Bristol Rovers in March this year. 4 United players were booked that day. Dickinson, Armour, Patrick and Dennis. Head-to-head, there's not really much of a head-to-head record between the two of us, is there really? Because basically we had that 2 seasons against them and then they disappeared up into League One. It's neck and neck basically, but the 5th meeting, the 2 teams, 1 win for us, 1 for the Wombles and 2 draws. We obviously saw that 1 win, didn't we?
Yes.
That was the game down at Kingstonian. That was a trek and a half. For those not aware, basically we went all the way down to what was Kingstonian at the time, wasn't it? Nice 3-1 win. But after the game was a mad dash to get the train home, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Basically. There was engineering works on the railway line, wasn't it, that would take us from Kingstonian to
Yeah, and the
Waterloo.
traffic around the ground was horrendous.
Yeah, trying to get a taxi.
We got taxis from Morden, and we arranged for the taxi to pick us up at 5 o'clock where he dropped us off, and it was a 5:30 by the time he landed.
Yeah, so basically we ended up making a mad dash
Yeah.
to go and to happen. We literally, I think some of them was only made the train with like 30 seconds to go.
Yeah, a couple of my mates. I was there. We changed trains, and they jumped on a different one. I was like, "No, you want this one?" And we were all trying to ring each other and all sorts. But we all got there. Part of the fun.
Look, always good fun for an away day, that isn't it? There you go. So the Dons, in terms of the work they did in the summer, some interesting names came in, didn't they? To them, particularly in defence, couple of decent names there, isn't it? In Gunter and Pearce.
Well, Gunter's just had a Wales call up this week.
Yeah, which goes to say, isn't it? Isn't he their most capped player of all time?
He's up there, yeah. Because Johnny Williams at Swindon is another in our league who, plays League Two football, but international as well.
That's going to cause a problem for them in November, though, isn't it? Because they're going to lose them for the best part of 3 weeks at least.
Yeah.
In terms of that sort of stuff, so it's I wouldn't that's almost thank God that we don't have an international player in our squad at the moment, really, isn't it? But there you go. Some other names. I mean, Paris Magoma is a name that sticks out to me. I don't know why. That name rings a bell, even though I think this is his first spell of playing football. But I think it's one of those names that's been about. He's been in Brentford's B setup, hasn't he? I think, and quite highly thought of. Kyle Hudlin is one that's not going to be hard to miss, is he? It'd be great to see him up against Tomas Holy because he's the same height as him. He's 6'9". He's the lad who was at Solihull Moors last season, sold to Huddersfield in the summer, and instantly loaned out to Wimbledon basically to get a bit more experience. So not playing much for them though. He's been injured. Josh Davison, he's the lad who was on loan at Swindon last season, isn't he? I think he scored against us, isn't he? He had a good game for them that day, so he might be one to watch out for. But the other name that stands out from the summer work, Harry Pell, isn't it?
Yeah,
good experience campaign at this level.
And likes a bit of an argument with some of our departed players.
Are they departed though? Because I think was it not
Callum Guy's possibly still about.
I couldn't remember if it was him
Manish.
or I thought Devitt was here. I remember you're right. Actually, it was later, wasn't it?
Devitt was possibly involved. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. So yeah, Harry Pell. I mean, overall, looking at their squad, Dan, what are you thinking? Looking at it, I mean, there's a few decent players, but there's a lot of names I don't recognise. If I'm honest.
Yeah, I think some of that's to do with the London area. There's such a pool of players that it's impossible for even likes of odd bods like me to track every one of them. But no, I mean, like I say, Gunter and Pierce stand out. Pell does. Up front, the strikers aren't massively known, aren't they?
No, I mean, like I said, Davison had a decent loan spell at Swindon, if it's the same one, I think to remember. Hudlin, like we said, he's going to be a big lad, and obviously they're going to knock the ball long to him if he's playing. Yeah. Nathan Young-Coombs is another one on loan from Brentford. They've got, I mean, that's the handy thing with being where they are, aren't they? In Brentford, they've got that B team set up.
Yeah,
There's going to be the odd player going on loan from them.
You imagine teams like Wimbledon and Sutton should be looking at your Brentford, Palace, Millwall, Charlton for the odd player,
Exactly that. And obviously their backup goalkeeper, Will Jaskalainen, is son of Jussi, isn't it?
Yeah, ex-Crew, wasn't he?
Yes, he was at Crew last season. He's on a 1-month contract because I think their second choice keeper got injured in a trophy game.
Yeah.
So he's been just to provide a bit of cover to first choice Tsanev. You might remember him.
Was it an under-21 player who injured him?
Probably. Be typical of that, wouldn't it? But their first choice goalkeeper is Nikola Tsanev. He's the one who was involved in that goal for Joe Garner last season for Fleetwood against Wimbledon, if you remember that one.
Yeah.
He nearly did the same thing against Northampton the other night. He's not an overly popular figure with their fans by all accounts. He's not the greatest keeper, it's fair to say. So obviously, as I mentioned there, on Tuesday night, they lost 2-0 to Northampton. And it was, if you've seen these goals, Dan, there were two very, very tame goals in this match. Yeah. Really, really poor. And one of them's a header down, and the keeper basically spills it into his net.
Yeah,
really
wasn't
slow.
The best, was it?
And the second one, I mean, the keeper had no chance of this one. It was a big deflection from a cross that went into the back of the net. But they're on a run of, I mean, they're 19th in the form table at the moment. Their current record in the last 6 games. It's drawn, lost, won, but then it's 3 defeats in a row. Could be going for 4 here. And remember what happened? I mean, last season is where things really went bad for them. 27 games without a win. And that must be crippling to go and watch that, mustn't it?
Yeah. Well, I said for a long time that they were coming down, didn't I, if you remember?
I said to their guys, basically, we were sat there for weeks like, right, who's coming down? Because we want the Lancashire clubs to come down. As we were looking, we were like, well, Crewe and knackered, Wimbledon are. And there's like, basically, as weeks went by, we're like, Wimbledon's gone. They're not staying up. They're not going to get a win anytime soon. So, yeah. Difficult, isn't it? I mean, Johnny Jackson's their manager. Had a brief spell at Charlton. Did all right at the start of Charlton, but it sort of just went pear-shaped, didn't it? And
strange club, Charlton.
Yeah, the way they do things, even with all these changes of ownership in recent years, it's been really weirdly run, hasn't it? It's really strange. Yeah. He's not really had much of a chance to put his stamp on this squad yet, though, has he? He's put a few players in the side, but by all accounts, there's still a lot of players in there who are dead wood from last season that you can't shake off. And I don't think it's a case of like with Paul Simpson, where he came in and thought, you know what, actually, I don't need to get rid of a lot of these because actually some of them are quite good. I can make them into better players. I have a feeling Jackson just wants to get them shipped out, but they're on contracts and you can't really get rid of them, can you?
Yeah. That's one of the things when you get relegated, isn't it?
Yep, that's the challenge. Let's talk about United then, Dan. Didn't appear to be any knocks in midweek. Obviously, all the injuries are as they were, aren't they? I think.
Yeah.
Barkley 3 weeks away.
Yeah, Barkley, I reckon he's back in the building and back on the grass, so hopefully not too far away.
Yeah,
Jamie Devitt, they're talking several weeks.
It's a real shame, that, isn't it? Because he looks so good against things. It's just rotten luck, that, isn't it? But especially as basically he picked the injury up in a training session they had on Saturday to make up for the fact that we were playing against Harrogate. So I just think he might well have played against Harrogate. And he cannot catch a break, that lad, sometimes, can he? But there you go. But yeah, other than that, obviously Dixon, Senior, also long-term. Simons as well. Show Silver, they say healing quite slowly, isn't it, at the moment, which is frustrating because we could really do with him as an option late on. Because, I mean, that's the one thing that actually stood out from the Mansfield game. Simo didn't make any changes really to late on. He obviously brought Gibson on because he lost a bit of that edge after the booking. Brought Hilton on for him. Stretton only came on with a minute to go, didn't he?
Yeah.
He's not really found his feet yet, has he, Jack?
No, I just don't think it's fell for him. He's only getting bit part appearances, etc. So
yeah, it's one of those ones. He almost needs one of the players, the first choice players, to pick up a knock so he can start a game.
Yeah,
and show what he can do, because it's difficult coming in sometimes in those games late on, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
You're not up to the pace, and if you have to do that every week as well, and you're not an experienced player who's used to it, it can be tough. But yeah, bar that, as you mentioned, obviously Barkley coming back and Devitt and Edmondson, still not sure about how long he's away. Probably not for this weekend, we think.
No.
But hopefully not too long. So yeah, I mean, thoughts on this one? We stick with the same 11 pretty much, isn't it?
I think the 11 picks itself, barring any last minute injuries.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't. I mean, you certainly wouldn't change that back five either way, would you? Cause
not at the moment. No, it's picking itself.
Yeah, midfield wise, Moxon and Guy, good partnership. Gibson's playing really well. The only reason I can think is maybe if you wanted to give Gibson a little bit of a rest, maybe to bring someone else in. But the area you really want to be able to make a change in an attack, isn't it? Really, to freshen up one of Patrick or Dennis, maybe to give someone a run there. But as we said, Stretton's probably just not ready for it, is he? That's the problem. Yeah.
What we could do if it's a game where we're like 2-0 up and comfortable, where you can get a good half hour in or something.
Yeah, that's ideally what we want. So
Saturday would be nice.
Well, that brings us on to predictions, Dan. What are you going for?
2-0 win.
Okay.
With Christian Dennis, and I think Callum Guy's finally going to score.
How many times have we predicted Guy in the past and he's still not scored for us?
Oh, yeah, Callum.
Go on, Callum.
Do
us a favour.
Pinker's in.
Right, I'll do Mike's prediction before I do mine. So here's Mike's prediction.
So this week I'm going for a 2-0 win with Huntington and Dennis.
Oh, Huntington and Dennis. You've got three goals there. There you go. I'm not going to go for the same. I was going to go for 2-0 there, but you know what? I'm going to go 4-0. I just fancy us just to turn it on this weekend. I really do. So I'm going to go with goals for Dennis, Mellish, Moxon to finally get his first, and Amari Patrick. Come on, Amari. We want an Amari goal. That's what we want to see. Let's get his confidence back up. So there you go. So that's your predictions for this week. And no change to the predictions table. Still me and Dan at the top on 6 and Mike lagging behind on 3. And if you want to really include him, Greg is on 0 points because he had 1 week and he didn't get any. A bit harsh, that I know, but there you go.
Yeah.
Quiz
question.
Quiz question, yeah, before we do the very short X-Files section this week.
Right, so say it again.
So the question is, so if Paul Huntington became the first Carlisle player in, I think it was 16 years, to score a league goal for Carlisle United. It's league goals, so we're not including the trophy, so Jared Branthwaite doesn't count, as we've said. So Paul Murray and Paul Huntington are the first 2. There are 5 other players who in the last 25 years who were born in Carlisle and scored a league goal for Carlisle United. Who are those 5 players?
The 5 are Paul Simpson.
Yep, Paul Simpson. So Paul Simpson scored in the 03-04 season. He's got 7 goals that season, didn't he? So there you go.
But scoring later in that season than him, as we found out this week, was Mark Boyd.
There you go. Mark Boyd, 1 goal in his 9 appearances.
Yeah.
I think it was a belter against Scunthorpe as well, wasn't it? I think a long range effort, everything to remember.
Matt Jansen will be in there.
Yep, so Matt Jansen's the oldest one. He was obviously 97, around about that period, so yeah.
Yeah.
So there's 2 more.
Tony Hopper.
Tony Hopper, indeed. He got 2 goals in one in each of his spells.
The 5th one. Ooh. Give me the season.
Oh, God, off the top of my head, it would have been... I think it's 01-02, if I remember.
01-02.
Because I originally... it's not really giving you a hint because he wasn't playing at that point. At first, I thought Paul Boateng was one as well, but he was born in Holtwhistle.
Yeah, he was Holtwhistle Boateng, yeah.
And obviously, Delap was born in Corby, so he's not one.
Mike Jack never scored for us, did he?
No, he didn't.
Johnny Allen Penrith or Carlisle?
See, I've got Johnny Allen down because I read it somewhere online he was Carlisle. So if I've got this wrong, I do apologise. I got the question wrong, but I think I read somewhere he was Carlisle. So let me just double check that.
So I was going to, because I do know he's a bit of a Penrith lad, isn't he?
No, you're right, he's Penrith. I do apologise. So actually, there's only 4. One source I looked at said Carlisle, so I do apologise for that. So yeah, so there you go. It's 4 players basically. It's not that many, is it? Really, when you think about it.
No.
And pretty much all of them are attacking sort of minded players, aren't they?
I mean, if you widen it to Cumbria, there's quite a few because Stuart Green would be in there.
Stuart Green, yep, he would be in there. Richard
Procass.
Procass.
Richard Procass.
There'll be a couple of others, I'm sure, that I can't remember.
Glenn Murray,
yep, there's another one.
Scott Derby,
yep.
Jeff Thorpe.
Yep. Rob Edwards. Yeah. I mean, they're a little bit earlier than 25 years. There you go. So, no, there you go. That was the quiz question that I managed to get wrong, so I do apologise for that. Johnny Allen is very much Penrith born. I do apologise. Right. Let's move on then, Dan. X-Files, not much happening this week, was there? Just a few goals in, because obviously there was no weekend games to cover. So, midweek, there was a few games, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was a little bit of stuff. Not loads. He's one who hasn't scored for a while. Geffin Jones scored for Bolton in a 2-1 win at MK. Bolton are doing all right in that League One, as I thought they might. Andy Cook got a brace for Bradford, 2-1 win at his former club Tranmere. He's now well up in the top scorers chart as well, isn't he?
It's interesting. He loves scoring against his former clubs, except us, doesn't he, Andy Cook? I don't know what it is. He scores against Walsall. He scores against Bradford. He scores against Mansfield. It's mad.
Scott scored again for Notts County, 2-0 win over Aldershot. He's doing all right, isn't he?
Finding his feet, isn't he? Finding his feet now.
And Mark Beck scored a brace for Darlington in a 3-1 win at Bradford Park Avenue.
He's having a good season, isn't he? He's getting a few goals for them.
Yeah, he's dropped down that level where he's one of them. I think he's a better player in that league, but not quite as good at sort of National League 2 level.
Yeah.
Hovers around it.
Yeah.
And others, James Brown, former loanee, is called up to Malta's squad for the upcoming Nations League fixtures. Dean Henderson has just been announced in the England squad.
Oh, there you go.
With Pickford out injured. That's just come as we're recording. And Jared Branthwaite came on as a sub for PSV, got another half hour or so in a 1-0 win over RKC Valvik.
I wonder if he'll end up in the under-21 squad as well.
Yeah. Oh, and a piece of news that has just come through when we started recording.
Oh, yes.
The rearranged Harrogate game is on Tuesday, November the 8th, 7:45 kick-off.
Right, well, there you go. And apologies.
I think it's FA Cup the weekend before, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. You're right, to
Yeah.
be fair. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd imagine Bradford's got a half-decent chance of being in that under-21 squad, you'd reckon? Had a few appearances for it'd be one of the squads at least. I think he still do the under-20s, can't he? So hopefully he'll get a call up to one of them and continue his recognition. Well, that's it, Dan. Thanks very much for joining me. Really appreciate it. In terms of upcoming episodes, we'll have a preview of the Newport game. That'll be sorted probably nice and early because I'm quite busy at the end of next week, so I'm going to have to get that one done early as well. And we got we need to get around to recording my CFC 11, but there's a few days I've got off coming up soon, so we'll see if we can try and fit it in one of those days maybe. Interview wise, we're getting them sorted. I'm potentially going to be able to do them a little bit earlier than I planned, hopefully. I'm trying to arrange something to do this, but just need to get a few things in place to sort that out. But that should be really good, and I genuinely think you'll really enjoy those interviews if we can get them sorted. So good stuff. Right, Dan, thanks for joining me. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back next week, and up the Blues.
Up the Blues.